Welcome, one and all, to the Damage Report, which we are back for. It's a Monday, and thus, Francesca Fiorentini. Francesca, how's it going? Welcome.
Hey,
glad to have you here. Very glad.
Free Palestine.
100%. Hey, don't say radical. That's violence, okay? That's chaos.
I know, it's genocidal to say free anything.
Chaos.
Usually people who say in history free blank, those people are on the wrong side of history. I don't know if you've been following.
I just find it to be aggressive.
Yeah.
I think maybe couch it as someday a little bit free.
Right.
We'll be so absolutist about freeing or living. I don't like it. I don't like it.
This war is really about words.
Oh geez. Okay, we're getting big break. Literally, as this show starts, we're getting breaking news. So we're gonna see what we do out of that. But before we get to that breaking news, and perhaps to give me a second to learn the breaking news, we're gonna give you a little update on the Dragonathon that we've been doing. We wanted to get 500 gifted subs to help expand the community, welcome new people in and all that. And so we set this collective goal at 500 gifted subs. And we also now have a leaderboard for the top 10 people who do the most gifting, very charitable individuals. Well, we're very close to breaking the community goal. We're at 397 as of the beginning of the show. And here is where the leaderboard stands. Original member Gabby is at 60 gifted subs. Voxella came in strong on Friday with 50. Lady F&T's there at 40. Kayleigh at 25 at number 4. And we have a tie for 5, 6, and 7 with Jill Jedden at 20, a Memican at 20, and Joe Gutierrez at 20 as well. Kimmy Corey Jr. coming in the number 8 spot with 15. And then there are 7 people who are tied at 10. That is Jen Welch, Moon Dragon, LaShawn Lewis, and Bronco, T Underhill, Ruby Dooby Doo Dragon, and BH. Thank you to all of you. Love to see it there. We're not gonna go through the whole thing. Maybe we'll do it a little bit more in a social break. But if we get to the 500 gifted memberships, you're gonna ruin my hair for me by making it turn purple. Or sorry,
or make it better.
I think Brett said to dye my hair like my nutritional role model, Grimace from the McDonald's Play place. So thank you. I think that was Brett that wrote that. So it's looking like that is probably gonna happen. And then for those who have the top 5 spots on the leaderboard, we have access to a variety of special gifts. We'll talk about them more in the social break, but just wanted to give you a little update right there. Now, that said, let's respond to this breaking news in real time. We have a huge piece of breaking news when it comes to the invasion, the devastation in Gaza. Hamas has apparently accepted a ceasefire proposal, according to Al Jazeera, put forward by Egypt and Qatar. Hamas said that the head of its political bureau, Ismail Haniyeh, told the Qatari prime minister and Egyptian intelligence minister that the militant group had accepted their proposal. And so here are just a few of the top line components of this. Bear in mind that Israel has not fully agreed to it yet. They were a party to it, but they haven't agreed to it. So it would be the release of between 20 and 33 hostages over several weeks in exchange for a temporary ceasefire and a release of some amount of Palestinian prisoners as well. So there's a lot there that is still vague, but obviously having the two parties to the conflict, or at least one group, the remnants of which are still in the area that's being utterly bombarded, I suppose, is an important part of it. Now, it seems to me, it feels a little bit kind of like the whole border deal that theoretically you're helping to craft it, but there's no guarantee that you'll actually support it in the end. And we have to see if those components of it change over time. And also when you say temporary ceasefire, is that literally several weeks? And bear in mind, this is coming out at the same time, the same day when Israel had warned about 100,000 Palestinians living in Rafah that they needed to get the hell out of there, signaling that an invasion was imminent. And so exactly where they're supposed to go when this is basically like the last lingering holdout, who the hell knows? But Francesca, what do you make of all this?
I mean, honestly, this flies in the face of some of the narrative that we've been hearing from IDF propagandists that Hamas has been unwilling to do any kind of ceasefire negotiations. What they actually don't specify is that there's never really been an offer of ceasefire from Israel. There has been you release all the hostages and then we'll stop bombing. That's not a ceasefire agreement. That's not a negotiation. It is, we will cease the fire so that we can actually release hostages. And so that needs to be a first step, and it's always been a first step. And it was the only time that hostages actually were freed in this 7-month long, what I would call a genocide. And so would 57% of Biden voters call a genocide. It's when there was a ceasefire first. But Israel keeps on gaslighting us and telling us that it's Hamas that has been unwilling to create any kind of negotiation, when that's not true. And they have always said that they will, if the firing stops, if the bombing stops, they would be willing to release hostages. Now, here's the thing. We have to see whether Israel would even go along with this, right? Because Israel is on the precipice of an invasion of Rafah. They've been bombing homes and apartment buildings and places where people, including women and children, have been sheltering last night and the night before. Every single day, there are more and more shelling and reports of civilians being killed in Rafah. So all signs point to the fact that this Rafah invasion is already underway. And again, as you mentioned, all those leaflets are just sort of warning, like, hey, leave. Where? Can they go through Egypt? No, they can't. What they're telling them is to leave and go to Khan Yunis, which is the city up north, which is completely devastated. There are no hospitals, there is no infrastructure, there is no nothing. It is literally just rubble. So the question is where to? Meanwhile, the north of Gaza is in full famine. So again, it feels like a little bit, John, that this is like for the history books. It's like, well, Hamas agreed, so at least they won't have that propaganda line to lean on as they continue to murder civilians.
I mean, look, they can easily throw out they can ignore it, or they can say that they're agreeing in bad faith, which I don't know, maybe in some components they are. So I don't think this is necessarily putting them in as difficult a rhetorical position as you might imagine, but yeah, when you think about, like you talk about how utterly devastated the north of Gaza is, we've seen estimates of what percentage of buildings are even standing, let alone critical infrastructure, like you said, hospitals and those sorts of things. And they're already experiencing a famine. And now you're saying that best case scenario, you send close to 10% of the entire population of Gaza back up to the area that already doesn't have the resources or food to sustain the few people remaining there.
Right.
How is that supposed to work? Or is it that it's not supposed to work? And who cares, because these aren't really people, so what does it matter?
And it is in Netanyahu's political interest to keep on with the war and the invasion. Biden always says that the invasion of Rafah would be a red line, but have we seen a single red line from Joe Biden on Netanyahu and this extremist government that even leading Democrats like Chuck Schumer say is extremist? We need new elections in Israel. When? You need a ceasefire is what you need, my dude. You need a ceasefire 6-7 months ago, but they still can't procure that.
That's a thing that would have to happen now, whereas you can call for elections and that just happens at some point or whatever.
Exactly.
So I don't think that Joe Biden is going to establish a red line, but my advice to him would be that if you are going to establish a red line, write it in colored pencil, because you're going to be erasing it in the very near future to place it a little bit further out. And you're not going to want any lingering residue of like Sharpie or anything. So anyway, look, ostensibly a slightly positive development, but it's like Hamas agreeing to it is one of the least consequential parts. Like the force that's invading and occupying and devastating the area seems more relevant, but we'll see what ends up happening with that.
Yeah.
With that said, we want to turn from the conflict to the continued brouhaha here domestically over the fact that some young people don't like what's happening there for whatever reason. So let's turn now to this. So I hope that is not the first time that you're seeing that video occurring at a Mississippi university with a group of students. I'm gonna say mostly or all frat students because of every bit of visual evidence that we have, taunting, shouting at, yelling racist slurs and acting in racist fashions towards protesters who dare to oppose the devastation of Gaza. We're gonna show you a little bit more video. And it's gonna show you some explicitly racist attacks as well as attacking I guess the weight of one of the protesters wasn't acceptable. Like if you're gonna be an activist, you have to be in a certain type of physical shape or else the frat boys will have a problem with it. So take a look at this.
Lizzo, 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 Lizzo. You better, you bitch.
Okay, so every one of those guys, and I think they're almost all guys. There's some women in the crowd, but they're not in the front row. Probably a good idea for their future job prospects. That are so angry with the fact that that woman doesn't want innocent Palestinians to die and holds that position while daring to be a black woman, that they have to shout out Lizzo, I guess the only other black woman they're familiar with, or again, she is not physically attractive enough for them, so her political opinions are worthless and she should shut up and go away. And all of this is happening, Francesca, while they know they're being filmed. There are cameras pointed at them and they are perfectly comfortable doing all of this racist stuff, including shouting things like, "Who's your daddy? Take a shower, shave your legs," throwing water bottles at the protesters. And as you saw in that first case, we can maybe go to this screenshot of the guy that I'm gonna say might be Steven Crowder's younger brother, making monkey faces and dancing like a monkey at the black woman. Because there's something wrong with her and that needs to be pointed out. The fact that he is willingly letting himself be videotaped engaging in racist mockery of an anti-war protester, he's the good guy in his mind and she is the bad person, that whole crowd. And by the way, like, if you have an instance where an individual is standing against a crowd of those, mocking them for wanting fewer civilians to die, it is amazing to me that the crowd thinks they're the hero in that story. I don't know, like I'm reminded, honestly, I don't want to be a nerd about it, but I'm reminded of like Captain America's Last Stand and Endgame. Like you're just ringed by all of this insanity and you don't back down. You take it all because that's how much you care about the issue that you're pushing for. What do you make of this?
I mean, I think it's pretty incredible where the cops are, right? They're surrounding her. They're not surrounding them. The protesters yelling, these counter protesters yelling racist things. And the cops have been on the side of white supremacy, on the side of violent counter demonstrators, actual infiltrators this entire time. So to me, it's in addition to the out and out racism, which I kind of, it's like, this is a dumbass college kid who's clearly a racist, whatever, he's gonna have to live with that. To me, it's the police behavior surrounding this one woman versus dozens of counter protesters. But more zooming out more broadly, I really have to ask some of the liberal Zionists out there who somehow think that Israel and the Israeli government are on the right side when they have bedfellows like these racist students here, when they have bedfellows like Lauren Boebert and Republicans and Mike Johnson and those who are gonna defend Israel. What does this version of Israel stand for? It is racism, it is ethno-nationalism, it is supremacy, and it is a certain kind of shade of supremacy, but it absolutely is white supremacist in and of itself. It doesn't mean that Israel can't be better and cannot change and cannot be different and cannot be truly democratic. And it's really important to understand, in this country, in the United States, the people who get doxxed, who lose their jobs, who are disciplined the most when it comes to standing for Palestinian human rights are, of course, Arabs and Muslims and Palestinian Americans themselves. But women and people of color specifically, people of color, especially Black Americans, will always be painted as anti-Semitic, that they are somehow uniquely anti-Semitic. Everyone's Louis Farrakhan to them, and like they have to be disciplined the hardest. And so let's remember all of the ways the female presidents who have resigned because of the false allegations of anti-Semitism, the DEI programs that are being criticized somehow now because people want genocide to stop. This is all part of a right-wing agenda to undermine liberal colleges, ostensibly liberal colleges, that somehow now are throwing down with false allegations of anti-Semitism. It is very chilling.
100%. Yeah. And to that end, I'm not going to go on like a big rant or whatever. I'll just briefly remind everyone of what I constantly do. The way that the media, the labels they apply to things are one of the most important things about what they do. And the fact that they don't define them, they just apply them and you're supposed to accept them. And most people do is why it's so important. When you label these protests as anti-Israel, that is not journalism. That is propaganda. That is all that is. They are not against Israel in no more way than the many, many people in Israel that are Jewish and don't approve of Netanyahu and his government. Are they anti-Israel? Okay, New York Times reporters, label them as anti-Israel then, because the only qualification is opposing a particular military strategy of a particular government. So just to be clear about that, and I want to be consistent too, when we're criticizing this reaction of the protesters, if there are counter-protesters and one of them shouts out something racist, that does not mean that everyone in the counter-protest is racist.
Of course.
If someone had a sign, that does not mean that everyone is wrong. But the issue here is, what was that entire group? First of all, this is at Ole Miss. Like, does anyone think that this was like a principled stand about October 7th? Does anyone think that? Come on. No.
They're serious
they
about
like the idea
releasing
of
the
shouting down
hostages.
limp protesters.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
They're
no, those
jumping on the
guys are
bandwagon.
those guys really want the hostages to be released.
Yes,
That's what this is about.
This is a green light to jump on protesters for standing up against, I mean, it could be anything. Right now it's genocide, but BLM, LGBTQ plus rights, Medicare for all, name it, doesn't matter. This black woman is a stand-in for everything that they don't like, which is shut up and go along and stop, stop yelling and chanting about things that you don't like. Just like, that's what this is.
Yeah, and look, I will say a corollary to if you are in a crowd and one person shouts out something bad, that does not make everyone wrong. There comes to be a critical mass where you have that crowd and the entire front 3 rows are there to jeer at the black woman. That's what they're doing, that's why they're there. They're shouting that she's Lizzo and that she's fat and she's a bitch and she should shut up and all the racism and all that. And at a certain point, if you're in the 4th row and you stay in the 4th row, just join the front 3 rows because you're one of those people now. At a certain point, when that is clearly the point of the organization, this is not one person at Columbia with a sign that is immediately denounced by all the people. This is Charlottesville. This is people in lockstep shouting the Jews will not replace us. Now, they're not literally saying that, but I'm saying this is not an outgrowth from an organization. This is what it's there for. They are there to mock the black woman for daring to speak up, for daring to exist where they can see her. That's what it's about. Yes. Now look, in the case of this one individual, the guy doing the monkey face or whatever, he was apparently kicked out of the frat. So that's good. I'm sure he'll have a job on Fox News or something very soon, or his own podcast, and he'll make millions of dollars because that's what the incentive structure is in America. But I also want to make clear that this is not just about those idiots, okay? Mike Collins, GOP congressman, tweeted out the video and said, Ole Miss taking care of business. And I want to be very clear. I told my production meeting, when I first saw this, I thought he saw that there were counter protests and he tweeted Ole Miss taking care of business, not knowing that some of them did some really racist stuff. No, he tweeted out that video with Ole Miss taking care of business. He likes that they made monkey noises at the black woman. Governor Tate Reeves says, warms my heart. I love Mississippi. Now that is at least a different video, but it's the same protest. It warms his heart. The governor of the state to see a mass group of white men shouting racist stuff at a lone black woman. It warms his heart. And you know what? I take him at his word. I think that does warm his heart. And I think it's a reminder of the lingering issues with race that we obviously still have in America. And not just random frat boys, okay? No. This is at the highest levels of the state government. Francesca, any other thoughts?
Yeah, last thought is it's just incredible because they're, from the top on down, Democrats and Republicans are both guilty of it. The fact that you have, these bills being passed that condemn slogans versus condemning anything that Israel has done in 7 months, the targeting of hospital workers and schools and children, refugee camps, right? It has meant there is a green light, not just for endless money for this endless genocide, but just anyone can jump on this bandwagon. When you have authors like Zadie Smith writing for the New Yorker why this is really a war of words, and in Israel-Palestine, that's actually, words are a weapon of mass destruction. That is a liberal, like sort of a liberal expression of the exact same sentiment, which is these students are punching bags, that these protesters standing up against the like murder, indiscriminate murder of men, women, and children, it's fair game. And so when you're like a racist in Mississippi, you're like, oh, dude, no one's gonna like, oh yeah, one kid's gonna get kicked out of his frat. Big deal. There are kids that are being suspended and expelled from schools. Columbia just canceled its commencement speech because people were exercising their free speech too much. I mean, this is so dangerous, John. And I feel and I fear we're gonna see a lot of the ramifications of this play out.
I understand everything about why the media has done to the protests what they've done and why they do it. And it's shades of Iraq and all of that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But like as a country, if we have, now granted, not every one of the counter protests has looked like this counter protest. Some of them have been more explicitly violent. Some of them have been more explicitly Islamophobic rather than explicitly racist like this. But if we as a nation if we're gonna focus on what's happening on the campus, we have a group of people that are so aggrieved at civilians that they have never met and will never meet or being killed, that they are willing to risk their entire future to hopefully influence their government to save some of those lives. And then we have a variety of groups that are so angry at those people for wanting the war to end that they're throwing fireworks at them, they're chanting racist slogans at them. And we're supposed to be mad at the first group. Like, how about we take stock? If these are two indications of what the next generation looks like, I'm way more comfortable with the kind that cares about preserving life than those who want people who care about civilians who are dying to shut the hell up about it. And I don't know, maybe if I was the media, I could have that conversation. Anyway, we need to take our first break. When we come back, lots more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. America. Okay. I know that I shouldn't do this because I know great comments will come in after this, but I want to give a Blue Apron gift card to Crafty Kether on Twitch for the question: is that Shark Tank guy gonna spout off that those frat boys won't find jobs? It's a great point, Kevin O'Leary. Yeah, what, like, is the monkey face guy? Is he cool? Is he gonna go work at his dad's used car dealership? Like, what's gonna happen? And like, I know people are like, why is the third shift zombie says, why is John so surprised that people in the South are racist AF? No, I get that. But I guess I just thought them being young, I'm not saying they're young so they can't be racist. They're young so that at least they're tech savvy. They know they're being filmed.
Right.
But they don't care. They know they're doing a racist monkey dance. Yeah, no, I want that. That's what I want my brand to be. I don't understand it. Anyway, okay, let's see what's happening over on Twitch. Tree Mubatiki just gifted a sub. Thank you, Tree, as always. Good to see you there. Don't Wake the Sleeping Dragon gifted a sub. Thank you. Yo Neck gifted a sub. Thank you very much. Marshall Ghetto gifted a sub as well. Thank you. Marshall Ghetto gifted another sub. Thank you so much. Look at all the gifting going over on Twitch. Okay, let's see. Felicity91 has been here for 32 months on Twitch. Says, love being here with all you people. John and Francesca, you are two of my favorite hosts. Well, thank you so much. Very nice of you.
John's one of your favorite hosts of the Damage Report. He better be.
I think they meant of TYT. I assume, but I don't know. Okay, let's see. Dead in the Scene, 29 months says, Franny's my absolute favorite. John is a close second, even though he watches wrestling. Has he watched Fallout yet? Like, that can save me. Yes, I watched Fallout. It was good. I'm actually gonna do a podcast on it on my Patreon this month. PG Shari's been here for 36 months. Thank you. AKA Dom G for 31. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. And Yo Next been here for 30 months. Says, round months on a fantastic Monday. Life is good. Thank you. Very nice of you. Okay, there's also a lot of gifting going on. Let's see. Where were they put? Ruby Dooby Doo Dragon gifted 5 memberships on YouTube. Thank you. CDN Northstalk Dad gifted 1. Moon Dragon gifted 10. Thank you, Moon. Good to see you there. T Underhill gifted 5. Swedane Dragon gifted 10. Thank you. And Bronco gifted 5. Alembican whose name might have been misspelled in our log. We're gonna check into that. I apologize for anyone whose name is being misspelled. We're gonna figure it out. But thank you, Olympican, for the gifts. Metalhead gifted 5 as well. Thank you. That is like a small crowd of people who now have membership. How nice of you. And Twitch subscribership as well. Thank you on both platforms. Okay, let's see. Moondragon, been here for 37 months, says happy mooniversary. Are there stretch goals after we hit 500? Well, look, one of the reasons it was we set it at 500 was because, look, as much as I joke, I know that you want it, so I wanted you to be able to get it. But we are kind of annihilating the goal a little bit too fast. So we have an idea. It's not a different thing. It's an extension of this that I think
You're
a lot of you.
All of your hair purple.
What is wrong with you? Don't go to her camera when she's mouthing things like that. Get rid of her. Get rid of that way. Anyway, no, because we know you're all sick bastards like her, we have an extra thing that we might throw onto that. So we will see. We haven't decided for sure. But if you want to blow through the goal and possibly get additional things, that could be coming. So
you should dye your dog, dye your dog, and that's not a euphemism, but one of your dogs has also got to go purple.
When I hear dog and dye in American politics right now, I immediately think of South Dakota.
True.
So hopefully that won't happen. But anyway, we'll come back with more. Oh my God, people are requesting a purple beard. That is not what I meant as an extension on the hair, but anyway. No. If you ruin my hair, America, I'm gonna fully shave this thing. And just think about that. Is that what you want? Anyway, with that said, we got a lot of news to get to. Let's jump into this.
Are you gonna testify? I have a gag order as to that first question. As you know, they've taken away my constitutional rights, so I'm not allowed to answer that question. This has never happened in this country before. It's a ridiculous thing. I was in Miami this weekend, and reporters are asking me questions, the same questions like you're asking me, and I have to say I have a gag order. I can't speak about it. Never happened before, ever. Number one. Number two, it's a fake trial.
3 fact checks. 1, not a fake trial. If it's a fake trial, why are you there? Just leave. It's fake. It's not a fake trial. It's a real trial. That's why you're there, actually. You're legally required to because it's real. 2, it has happened before, actually. Gag orders were not invented for Donald Trump. They've just been proven to be utterly ineffective in the case of Donald Trump.
The entire criminal justice system was created for Donald Trump, John. Just in the past 6 months. No, nobody. You could just commit crimes. No one would face any justice.
People were committing so many crimes. There's movies about it, The Purge. So anyway, and also he can answer questions about the trial that has nothing to do with the gag order. My God, is he stupid and or a liar? But he's also in trouble. And this time the trouble might stick, they say. I don't believe them. But anyway, Trump was found today to have violated his gag order for the 10th time. And I'm not like an expert on sports, but I think the saying is 10 strikes, you're almost out. Because he was found in criminal contempt for the 10th time. And going forward, this court, the judge says, will have to consider a jail sanction, noting that $1,000 fines will not stop him. The last thing I want to do is put you in jail, he told Trump. Incarceration is truly a last resort. Mr. Trump, it's important you understand. The last thing I want to do is put you in jail. You are the former president of the United States and possibly the next president as well. The magnitude of this decision is not lost on me, but at the end of the day, I have a job to do. So as much as I don't want to impose a jail sanction, I want you to understand that I will if necessary and appropriate. But at the end of the day, I have a job to do. And part of that job is to protect the dignity of this judicial system and blah, blah, blah. I'm just gonna keep talking because I worry that if I stop talking, you'll violate your gag order again and I will once again have to do absolutely nothing about it. That's what I get out of this. So 10 violations, 10 $1,000 fines. He was already told after the first set of violations that if he keeps doing it, he might face a jail term. And now he's done it again. And this time he's told he might face a jail term. So I think he's been backed into a corner, Francesca. I don't think he can afford to violate the gag order again. What do you think?
Do it, Juan. Do it, Juan. Just do it. Let's go. I will personally learn how to sculpt. I will learn how to make things out of bronze so I can erect a statue in your honor, Juan Merchant. Your honorable judge, Juan Merchant. I love you, dog. All right, you're my firstborn, my second. I'll change my kid's name to Juan Merchant. I say do it. Just seriously do it. I just want to see someone go there. I want to see him face any modicum of comparable justice. I mean, again, I say this and it doesn't really matter, but how many people are languishing in jail for nonviolent drug offenses because they've been deemed a menace to society should they get out and like be able to sell nugs? You know what I'm saying? Like it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's on the trail defaming literally everyone that's involved in this trial, and it's like, no, it's fine. Yeah. And like, you can only imagine if he does it, how much worse it'll get. So I feel like all he's got to do is just a few hours in jail, and he would, as soon as he gets his phone back, be like, dox the judge, and then he'd be right back in the slammer.
Look, I just think,
let's go.
Look, judge, because I know you watch. Just stop. Just stop. You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna do it, okay? When he says it's the last thing I wanna do, I think no truer word has ever been spoken. It is literally the last most important thing to him, which means that everything else is slightly less important. Like, for instance, having the gag order mean something, protecting the integrity of this trial. Those are less important priorities to him than not putting Donald Trump in prison. And Trump knows all of this. Like a feral cat, he can smell the pheromones, right. And he knows that they're not gonna do anything. So just stop talking about it, honestly. Like, I don't like that he's violating the gag order, but stop lying to us, okay? Just let him violate the gag order if you're not gonna throw him in prison. Because if you are eventually actually willing to do it, then just do it now. Because it's not hypothetical if he'll do it again. It's guaranteed that he'll do it again. You look like a weenie and you make the judicial system look like a weenie. You're not getting any, I know he's doing it for the same reason that Joe Biden wants to work with the Republicans or whatever. Like, or bring a Republican into your administration. Surely if we act reasonably, they'll stop pretending that we're communists. No, no, because they don't care. Just stop talking about it. Just let him violate it. Let him send hitmen to wipe out the jurors and the witnesses and everything. If you're not gonna protect the trial, stop pretending that you're gonna protect the trial. What time is 10:33? Damn, is it late already? No, we're skipping. We're moving to C. No more. Trump called Biden the Gestapo or whatever. I can't take it anymore. We're gonna move to other news.
You mean the gazpacho? I'm pretty sure it's gazpacho.
Delicious, chilled government. Anyway, let's move on to our C block.
Well, Senator, will you commit to accepting the election results of 2024? Bottom line.
Well, at the end of the day, the 47th president of the United States will be President Donald Trump, and I'm excited to get back to low inflation, low unemployment.
Wait, Senator, yes or no? Yes or no? Will you accept the election results of 2024, no matter who wins?
That is my statement.
Yep, that is his statement. Tim Scott is serious. He wants to be VP. There's never been a stronger indication of it. All of that stuff about respect for democracy or whatever, we're done with that. We're moving on because I think either I could be VP or I've already been told that I'm going to be VP. And that means kissing the ring, bending the knee, making the devil's bargain, whatever metaphor you want. Tim Scott is now on board with the death of democracy, if that's what's required. If Trump wins legitimately, which he could, then fine. Democracy prevailed and he becomes the VP. But if not, Tim Scott is fine with the big lie, like just lying to your supporters, sending them to the Capitol, the fake lawsuits, all that. He is now on board, okay? So as a respectable politician, Tim Scott is done. That's it, we're moving on from it. Okay, and he was asked multiple times to clarify. If he wanted to add even a bit of nuance, he could. Instead, we get this.
Just yes or no, will you accept the election results of 2024?
I look forward to President Trump being the 47th president. Kristen, you could ask him multiple times.
Senator, just a yes or no answer.
So the American people will make the decision.
But I don't hear you committing
for President Trump. That's clear.
I don't hear you committing to the election results.
Here's the challenge.
Will you commit to accepting the election results?
This is why so many Americans believe that NBC is an extension of the Democrat Party.
I'm asking you as a potential VP nominee, will you accept to commit to the election results in this election cycle, no matter who wins? Just simply yes or no.
I expect President Trump to win the next election. Listen, I'm not going to answer your hypothetical question when, in fact, I believe the American people are speaking today on the results of the election. And if it continues for the next 6 months, we find ourselves in a great position where we get back to another century of American prosperity.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
All of that is a reminder that not only is he utterly corrupt and has no morals whatsoever, he's also not the most intelligent person in the world. That wasn't even a good way to get through that situation. Another 100 years of prosperity. We didn't have 4 years of prosperity under Donald Trump. Do you remember, Tim Scott, what happened in the last year of his presidency? Were you awake for that?
But yeah, 100 years is like a little bit of a reference to like a forever. Like we'll have a next 100 years because Trump and or his family will be in power for 100 years.
It feels like a reference to a Reich is what it feels like. Another 1,000 years of good whatever. She kept asking the question, and I respect that. I like follow-up questions, but at the same time, he answered the question. He did answer the question. He answered the question the first time, and he answered it the same way every other time. He won't. That's it. When you're asked an easy question about whether you are going to respect our form of government and you refuse to answer it, you have answered it. That is how the rhetorical math of that works. She needs to make clear to her audience that he is not going to respect the results of the election and that whatever comes, like don't ask the same question over and over. Say, if Donald Trump sends a crowd to storm the Capitol, will you be marching alongside them? If Donald Trump has a bunch of lawmakers lined up against a wall and gunned down, will you be okay with that? Here's some fun hypotheticals, okay? Because maybe we won't get to those hypotheticals, but honestly, I didn't think we were gonna get to a storming of the Capitol. We're entering exciting times in America. Francesca, what do you think?
It's so chilling. I mean, it's wild to me that Tim Scott would say this. And I understand Tim Scott's like, maybe I'll be his running mate. Like, I've got to like keep it in line. And like all the sycophants are like, what's the line? We haven't been given the line yet. I don't know, your guy is facing a bunch of criminal indictments. He's in court every single day falling asleep. But it doesn't matter. The question remains. He's like, this is why that they call you guys part of the DNC. Like, no, dude. She's literally just asking you, would you accept the election results? No matter who wins. Yeah. And he's saying no. The answer he is giving is no. And again, these folks can't even be considered, like, we're not even in a democracy. Like, I think the follow-up question is, do you believe in democracy? Yes or no? That's the follow-up.
Yeah, and the correct answer is if it results in us going to the White House. Then I believe it. If not, then no. What if, hypothetically, Trump wins, Tim Scott becomes VP, and let's have fun, and as a treat, imply that we'll have a further election after that. And it's Pete Buttigieg is the candidate or whatever. And we're 6 months out from that election, and Pete Buttigieg is asked by Fox News, will you respect the results of the election? And he's like, well, we'll see. It depends. And maybe there'll be violence. It depends. Pete Buttigieg think maybe there'll be violence, but we'll find out together. How do you think the right-wing media and the Republicans would respond to that? Because that's what Trump just said. He said, if we don't win, it depends on political violence. We might have more rioting, more cops being beaten to death, maybe protesters being, like Tom Cotton wants, being thrown off the Golden Gate Bridge to drown in the bay. Maybe we'll have some of that. It depends. We'll see. Can you imagine if the Democrats talked like that? And to imply that having an issue with that means that you're MSNBC, dear God, I hope that MSNBC is not like the only like bastion of democracy or whatever, because then we're screwed.
Isn't it amazing that like we're focused on the language of students on campus when they're trying to protest genocide, and the right is just openly like, yeah, we're gonna do political violence and assassinations and we should kill these protesters, and the media is like, yep. Well, the protesters are saying from the river to the sea. Like, it's so scary to me. I'm very, very upset that Biden, and it seems like a lot of Democrats, are not more focused on this kind of language and what is going to be done should another 2021 or 2020 election, 2021 January 6th happen, then it is a concern about effing protesters.
Tom Cotton said from the bridge to the sea.
Right.
He said, throw people off the bridge if they're blocking your way. Murder, or at least attempted murder, these protesters. He said that on an interview, not leaked footage, Lauren Windsor released it or whatever. He said it in a televised interview. And I don't know if anyone other than I has mentioned that since then. But I don't know. There was a student at USC that said something I don't like. I think that discredits the entire movement. Let's move on to this other aspect of this. It is looking more and more like Tim Scott has a lock on the whole VP thing. He's now totally on for the big lie. But ostensibly the race is still on, and Donald Trump decided to have a little bit of fun. So he had this little meetup at Mar-a-Lago, and he brought all of the potential VPs there so that he could utterly degrade and humiliate them to their face as part of, I guess, trial by fire. It's basically like a frat hazing initiation. And so some of the things he had to say about these people, and I wish we had the audio, but unfortunately you're just gonna have to hear me do it, but is like openly insulting. Sometimes it's dismissive to the point where how do you stand there and take this? On Marco Rubio, he says his name is coming up a lot for vice president. He's been a senator for many, many years. That's the best thing that you can say is his name is coming up. On Tim Scott, as a candidate, he did a good job, but as a surrogate, he's unbelievable. He goes on to describe him as being boring. He literally seems to have already picked the guy for VP, and he's talking about how boring it is. For JD Vance, he wasn't a supporter of mine at the very beginning. He was saying things like, the guy's a total disaster. Anyways, I got to know him a little bit. As a non-politician, he's become one of the great senators. Well, no, I give him his due. The dude used to think that you could be America's Hitler, and he decided that it was better to be a servant of Hitler. Yeah. I think he's a great politician. I think that's exactly what America's politicians are best at. On Mike Lee, he said, I love your haircut. And he's a good man too, okay? Doug Burgum gets roasted. I didn't know this. He was a supporter of my 2 campaigns. He's a very rich man. So Doug Burgum not only is giving a bunch of money to Trump now, he apparently gave a bunch of money to Trump in the previous campaign, and Trump doesn't even know or care about him. So great job, Doug Burgum, on that.
By the way, Mike Lee, I was like, what's his haircut look like? It's just a diss at him. It's Mike Lee's basic, like he's balding.
Yeah, so messed up. On Kristi Noem, this is maybe the most fascinating thing. Not for what he said. We'll get to Byron Donalds for what he said. But for Kristi Noem, somebody that I love. She's been with me, a supporter of mine, and I've been a supporter of hers for a very long time. And that's it. There's really nothing else relevant, newsworthy to talk about when it comes to Kristi Noem. We're just moving on with our life. Anyway, he goes on to say about Byron Donalds, and this is amazing. Somebody who's created something very special politically. I totally know who he is. I like diversity, as you would say. I like diversity. Donors worth millions of dollars all want a piece of Byron. So he's, as you probably can guess from what Trump said, he's a black man. So he's done something special, super specific, and I like diversity. And then he said diversity with an accent. I like diversity with an accent. And that's all that he had to say about this black man that he's considering to make the second most powerful person in America. It's amazing, Francesca, what do you think?
Donors worth millions of dollars. This is like, is this the plot of Get Out, but Veep stakes? Like this I've got a lot of people that want to inhabit his body, and like, what is this? It's so funny if he weren't running for president.
I know, and they're all taking it because this is what you need to do to become VP. I was gonna say to gain power, but you'd only be VP. It's not power, it's power that you might get if Donald Trump keels over on the toilet someday. But other than that, no power. And by the way, maybe he'll send a mob of people to kill you. That might also happen.
True.
So
that's true.
That's fun. Anyway,
I still think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be RFK. Still, sorry. I know we're about to wrap, but
look, if I
sorry,
probably choose RFK because I think that would help him politically.
Yeah, I think he would choose him.
But anyway, okay.
And RFK has no scruples.
No, well, I mean, I don't know about anybody in this list. I mean, Byron Donald is very special. I did hear that once. Anyway, we need to take a break. We'll come back. Lots more to talk about. There is a word for how all of these people are acting to be chosen. Right wingers love it. It rhymes with duck, and they're all willingly taking on that role. Anyway, with that said, okay, let's move on to some comments. Sinners and Saints Mud Dragon, member for 12 months, says, I didn't get to send a B-Day chat last week, but sending a milestone chat on a fantastic Monday while I'm taking my exams is better. Wish me luck. good luck. I hope it works out for you. Mama Sea Dragon, thank you for becoming a member. Much appreciated. Jessa became a member. Thank you so much, Jessa. Glad to see you there. Metalhead gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Benjamin Morrill gifted another membership. And Leany Dragon gifted a membership. And I have gotten the warning that we are dangerously close to passing the 500 goal. Dear God. Apologies in advance to my wife, who will have to see this hair more often than me.
You should just, you know what you should do? If you hit 1,000, you dye it back.
Well, that way, if we show them the purple, and then all of them are like, "What hath we wrought?" Then they have an out.
But John, have you considered like cheetah spots? No. You know, when you like shave your head and do like little cheetah spots? It'd be very expensive, but it might look really fly. Very Lisa Frank.
We will see what happens. Milton Borrell says in a super chat, I live in Louisiana. Yes, the South is racist. I'm not. I'm sickened by how the protesters are being treated. Can anyone name a racist-free state? No, because unfortunately states are inhabited by humans and humans are inherently racist. JNL5050 says in a super chat, hi, John and Franny. My husband JR passed Saturday from his lung cancer. That was devastating.
So
I'm so sorry about that. In his 17-month battle, TDR helped me deal. It was the distraction I needed daily. Thank you. John, I still need to send your painting and onesie I have for Raina. That is absolutely devastating. I'm so sorry. I've lost people to cancer in my life as well. I'm so sorry that you've gone through that, and I'm thankful that we were able to help out just a little bit with a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of conversation. Sorry that you've had to deal with that. Okay, Chris Smith says in a super chat, isn't the aid pier being built in the south, but Israel wants them to go north? I actually did not know exactly where they're placing it, but I would not be surprised by that. Mama Bear Dragon says in a super chat, negotiations were had, agreements made. We're closing on our dream house at the end of this month, Project Joy. That is awesome. You do not often hear these days about people successfully being able to buy a house because of all the issues with interest rates and everything. Congratulations for you for being able to live your dream. AJ Nestor has been with us for 46 months on Twitch, says coming up on 4 years as a TYT member, and the Damage Report is the show I never miss, even if I have to watch the replay. Well, thank you. It's in my top 5 favorite shows on the network.
How do you watch the replay though? That mean you're a member?
Yeah, we upload the full show to the members. And you can also.
So that's a huge reason to become a member I need to become a member now. Because sometimes I miss them. I was like, I want the replay.
Not a bad idea. By the way, you should watch the replay of last Thursday's show with Francesca, and yes, right. It was awesome. Okay, let's see. Okay, Stickman Grit says in a super chat, Franny, RFK would do too much to out crazy and upstage Trump and has recently insulted him. There's no chance in hell Trump picks him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he would want to upstage him, and he would.
Okay, I think the upstaging thing I think is a good point. The insulting thing, he could come out, like if they had a deal and he could say a bunch of positive things about Trump and it would be water under the bridge, I think.
It's on Trump to turn on his own warp speed program. That's what he'd have to do.
Oh my God. It would buy him a lot of cred with the anti-vax people. I'm not saying RFK Jr. is anti-vax.
Oh, yeah.
His supporters seem to think that he is. Anyway, more news. Okay, apologies in advance for the next video we're gonna play, but there's some fun stuff to come after it. Unfortunately, first, this.
And how about our US Border Patrol?
Oh, that's a great list.
They care about America.
How about the guys that cleared out Colombia? I'd like to add them too. Whatever you, I mean, but it's probably more likely to go to Paul Pelosi, Susan Rice, and Gavin Newsom. So I think your list is correct, but a little off-brand for Big Joe. Rachel?
Yeah. Well, maybe Paul Pelosi needs the hammer instead of the metal.
Well, it's metal.
I'm like supposed to like make a joke or something. That was Fox News, and those two reprehensible ghouls, those utterly disgusting, pathetic worms of hosts, are making a joke while talking about the Presidential Medal of Freedom being given out. It wasn't enough that Pete Hegseth is like, oh, they'll probably give it to Paul Pelosi for surviving an assassination attempt, having his skull cracked open. And thank God they cleared those kids out. I was terrified by the fact that there were protesters. Thankfully, somebody stifled their free speech, which I don't care at all about. That wasn't enough. Rachel Campos Duffy, who is garbage in human form, said he needs the hammer. a person from their side, from their ideology, deranged, but agreeing with them on politics, goes and tries to murder Nancy Pelosi, doesn't succeed through just a miracle of bad timing, and instead nearly murders Paul Pelosi. Paul Pelosi, that's it. That's the only part of the story for him, is that he was almost murdered. And they have not passed up an opportunity to mock the fact that he was almost murdered ever since then. So if you are a potential assassin on the right, you watch Fox News and it's a joke. Hey, if you do it, maybe they talk about you and what you did from now on. You get a little glow up from Fox News for trying to murder your political opponents. Like seriously, I understand that we have free speech or whatever, so they can say literally whatever they want. But isn't that the sort of thing that would have caused you to be fired 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Mocking the victim of an assassination attempt. Like I don't know if CNN was around at the time, but like if they mocked Reagan, like for almost being killed, or Brady, like.
Yeah. No.
Like I honestly don't even understand. Like we hypothesize about a dark place that our country could go to, and we're already there. That you can do this on cable news, and you will be paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to mock the survivors of political violence. It's amazing to me, Francesca.
I mean, right, and look, if he had been killed, they wouldn't make these jokes for a year, and then they would, because he lost. It's weakness. I mean, they think it's funny because they're the victors. He's the victim, and that's it. And here's what I'll say: it's a little unconventional, but I'm really pissed at Nancy Pelosi around all this political violence stuff, because I have heard Nancy Pelosi say more about the protesters outside of her home, demanding that she do more to stop Israel from murdering Palestinians and calling them Russian, trolls and stooges and paid by China. I've heard her more speak about these protesters than she's ever talked about the right-wing political violence against her very own husband. She had a press conference, she talked about it, but then she squirreled it away, almost as if she's playing into the idea that it made her look weak, or that, oh God, we don't want to talk about it too much. The answer to political violence is not to tiptoe around the political violence. It is to call it out. It is to remind people of it. But instead, she's too focused on these non-violent protesters who, and this was pretty funny, rented a bunch of horse manure, or just got a bunch of horse manure and put it outside of her home. I love that. I love that move. I don't know if you can rent it. You have to give the horse manure back after you rent it. But the point is,
I don't know that they take secondhand horse manure, but I understand what you're saying. And yeah, look, in this particular case,
have you really heard her say that much in defense of her own husband?
She's talked about it a couple times. I am assuming it is deeply traumatizing to narrowly escaped being murdered. No, you're right to point out that in these issues, obviously she's very often in the wrong politically. In this particular story, she and her family are the victim, and it is amazing to me that you can make money not just on like Rumble or whatever, Kick or whatever, on Fox News, just mocking the victims of political violence. It is amazing, and I hope
that's why they get paid the big bucks, John. I mean, this is incredible. It's not only can you how much money they're making.
Oh, tons of money. And as they help to push America down a path where people feel more and more free to engage in acts of political violence, I hope, honestly, that they and their families never have to experience anything like the Pelosi's had to experience.
Yeah.
Okay, as they try to make that more common. Okay, let's lighten things up to end the first hour. Let's jump into this. We can just jump into this first video whenever we're ready.
Laughing, joking, it's just a conversation among friends. Imagine if the president were Donald Trump. Imagine if I were standing behind the podium. You'd have Jim Acosta screaming, "Are you going to take the student loans from the anti-Israel protesters?" John Carl right on cue. "Will you withdraw support from any anti-Israel protester?" And they wouldn't stop until we disavowed the support of every student in the country. Where is the adversarial press?
Yeah, that's Mark Hamill, and it was Star Wars Day. You madman. What are you talking about, Kayleigh McEnany? Like, I know we often will throw out these hypotheticals. Can you imagine if it was the other side? Well, if you had been doing a press conference, Kayleigh McEnany, and you had brought out Mark Hamill to talk about Star Wars. I can imagine that, and I don't think it would be a big issue. I mean, it's not like when Trump would come out and talk about injecting bleach as a solution to a public health crisis. Like, this is not the serious thing that you seem to think it is. And if you would like to pivot to saying, no, we're supposed to be talking about stripping away student loans from students daring to exercise their First Amendment rights, you'll feel free to argue for why you think that cancel culture should take that particular form, why it should manifest in that particular way. But that's just Luke Skywalker, and he's just talking about Star Wars. It's not actually a big issue. Jesus Christ, what do you think?
I just love how triggered MAGA is when they're reminded that no celebrities who are at all relevant want anything to do with them. Like Scott Baio and James Woods don't count, and no one would care if like they were on the dais in the White House press room. Like, nobody cares. Mark Hamill, pretty big get, pretty fun. May the 4th be with you. That's Olivia Rodrigo. Also, I'm sure I wasn't combing the right-wing media, but I'm sure they freaked out over that too. It's just like, same with Taylor Swift. They're so mad. Like, that's truly what this is about, is them being like, ooh, they have so much fun, and those people don't have rape allegations. like
100%.
Why do we have all the Me Too celebs?
They're all experiencing a generalized version of what has driven Donald Trump's life for the last 10 to 20 years.
Yes.
He just desperately wants to be liked and be in that room and have all the fancy, glittery people like him. And they don't. They don't like him, and they don't like Fox News. They don't want to be associated with Kayleigh McEnany. Like, that's just the way it is, and it bothers them so very much. It's just Mark Hamill, like, lighten up, honestly. And look, if you get back in and maybe you become, that person again, Kayleigh McEnany, press secretary, you're probably not going to be able to get a Mark Hamill. But hey, Gina Carano, maybe it could happen.
Roseanne Barr, yeah, just let Roseanne Barr.
That's pretty good, I guess, if you can get it. Anyway, Jesus Christ, these people are so unfun. Anyway, that's all the time we have for the Force, or the first hour of our show. Thank you, everybody, for listening and or watching. More to come in the aftermath, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, one and all, to the Aftermath. I am John Iadarola. Who's that? Is that Francesca Fiorentini?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Everyone, listen to the Bitchuation Room wherever you get your podcasts. Also, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, we go live on youtube.com/FrannyFio and twitch.tv/FrannyFio. I'm getting the plugs in.
Get those plugs in. By the way, when you were talking about renaming Karina after the judge, I was just thinking, would it be Merchina or Mercharina? Because Mercharina is not bad, actually.
No, just Juan Merchant. Juan Merchant.
The whole name. That's not, there's no Karina left.
Whole name. Yep, no Karina.
Okay, well, she'll adapt. She won't even remember the original name. It'll be fine. Anyway, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you everybody who's been sending in messages. Those of you who've been gifting subs over on Twitch, gifting memberships, we really appreciate it. There's been a lot of gifting going on and it's awesome to see. Let's see what's going on out there lately. Michael Mashok, thank you for the super chat. I'm not gonna read that out loud, but thank you. Alexander Pontier with the super chat says, this reminds me of a Chinese curse I heard a while ago. May you live in interesting times. Who did we offend to be cursed like this? Yeah,
Seriously, put the crystal back.
I just
put it back.
A reference too. Is that the dark?
It's like an Indiana Jones reference. Like put the relic back. You know, put whoever disturbed the mummy. Like time to whatever.
We're surrounded by people who have so much influence and get so much money for being so utterly horrendous, and it bothers me more every day. Okay, let's see. Laura Philosophizes, member for 1 month, says free Palestine. Thank you for being there. Thomas Sears, member for 27 months. Always good to see you. Tom says 5/4 is Dave Brubeck Day. Take 5. On another note, pro-peace, pro-freedom demonstrators always get the blame and bear the brunt of pro-status quo ire. 100%. The most threatening thing you can do is say, hey, maybe the war could not continue. They hate when you say that. Anyway, okay. Corey F, member for 40 months. Thank you so much. Muranshi, member for 1 month, says, John, why do you abuse the camera and thus the mic at the end of every pre-port of Dragoneers Be Sensitive? It's just, you need to understand, YouTube's live streaming functionality is still terrible. When you press to live stream, the stream starts from my perspective, but you don't start seeing it for like 8 to 9 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And then in the VOD, it was recording. You just didn't have access to it during that time. And when I press to stop, it just keeps recording for like, I don't know, a few seconds. So the whole thing is a mess. Everything is a mess. Okay, let's talk about a different sort of mess. Let's talk about this.
In fact, at the end of the book, you say the very first thing you would do if you got to the White House that was different from Joe Biden is you'd make sure Joe Biden's dog was nowhere on the grounds. Commander, say hello to Cricket. Are you doing this to try to look tough? Do you still think that you have a shot?
Well, number one, Joe Biden's dog has attacked 24 Secret Service people. So how many people is enough people to be attacked and dangerously hurt before you make a decision on a dog and what to do with it?
Well, he's not living at the White House
That's
anymore.
The question that the president should be held accountable to.
You're saying he should be shot?
That's what the president should be accountable to as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in that follow-up as well. Are you saying that he should be shot? Here's her response.
You're saying he should be
that's
shot?
That's what the president should be accountable to is what is the number? And I would say about Republicans criticizing me, these are the same Republicans that criticized me during COVID. They've criticized me when I've made other decisions in South Dakota to protect my state. And my state today is extremely happy and thriving.
Okay, wow. So the question was, are you saying that Commander Biden should be shot? And she did the cowardly thing that every politician does, which is say a incendiary thing to get attention, sell books. And then when you're asked about it, refuse to say anything. But again, that's an answer. She was in fact saying that Commander Biden should be shot. Say hello to Cricket cannot be interpreted as any other way. If you don't remember this, Cricket is the dog that she gunned down. She assassinated Cricket, a 14-month-old puppy, and she's saying Commander Biden should be treated the same way. Commander Biden, notably, is not at the White House. Commander Biden is off with relatives, has no effect on policy, is not in the public eye. And this is how much Kristi Noem
he's
hates
got
dogs.
The nuclear football, but like he's just chasing after
you try to get away from him. He starts growling if you try to take it back.
Yeah.
No doubt he's an aggressive dog or whatever, but he's just like a private dog living somewhere where we don't even know. And it just bothers Kristi Noem so much that this dog isn't being shot. A dog merely existing somewhere sends her into a rage. What do you think?
Commander, say hello to cricket. Is that the line?
Yeah. The dog, she assassinated the dog, and she's now using it as a warning to other dogs.
She's just out for blood. Like, I love that this is like, some people say the vice president doesn't have a lot of power unless, something happens to the president. No, Kristi Noem will be on a dog murdering rampage. Like, this is, and like, that's gonna be her thing. It's like some vice presidents do, like, obesity programs and like pancake breakfast. She's gonna be like, hey, bring your dog to murder morning. Like, that's like, this is, look, and again, I'm not a dog person. I am not a dog person. It doesn't mean I don't like dogs. I just don't, like, I'm not like, oh, like, they're sweet, whatever. I'm a cat, I'm more of a cat person, never had a dog. And even me, I'm like, ooh, America is like definitely a dog person country. Cat is very like Kim Jong-un, which I know we're gonna get to.
Oh my God. We will.
Cat is evil, dog is good. American dog wearing American flag tie-dye bandana. Not tie-dye, but bandana, you know what I mean?
It could be tie-dyed, why not?
It could be tie-dyed.
Status Quo doesn't like tie-dye, it's associated with anti-war stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was another question there very quickly. She asked Kristi Noem if she's doing this to be tough, why she's saying all this. And I can't tell, because she's not expressing any emotion whatsoever. One might speculate that she is physically incapable of expressing an emotion.
She is. It's a lot of Botox, John. Like, look at her face. She's literally incapable. No, she's incapable.
I think she is so dead inside that there's nothing that comes out. She's just walking through her life looking for a dog to assassinate and seeing ones that she can't yet assassinate. And that makes her mad, but nothing comes out, like a Vulcan. That's my guess. And I would also say, I see people in the chat comparing her to Cruella de Vil. And I'm gonna need you to stop doing that. Because look, Cruella de Vil was an evil character, a villain. She killed and skinned dogs. But she was not as bad as Kristi Noem. Can we acknowledge that? Cruella de Vil just badly wanted a dog skin coat. Noem doesn't want a coat. She's not gonna do anything with the dead dogs. She's just doing it because she hates dogs that much. It's worse than Cruella de Vil. Cruella de Vil didn't hate dogs. She just wanted their delicious skins. Kristi Noem is crueler than the woman named Cruella. But anyway, you alluded to another issue in the book. So let's turn to that now, starting with this.
Talk about meeting some world leaders, and one specific one. Quote, I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. I've been a children's pastor after all. Did you meet Kim Jong-un?
Okay, so that's a tough question for Kristi Noem, since in her book, she did say that she met him. Now, little spoiler alert, she didn't meet him. It was a lie. So one would think, embarrassing, but you could probably clear that up pretty quickly. She goes in a different direction.
Well, as soon as this was brought to my attention, I certainly made some changes and looked at this passage. And I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. As soon as it was brought to my attention, we went forward and have made some edits. So
you did not meet with Kim Jong-un. That's what you're saying.
No, I met with many, many world leaders. Many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I think I've talked extensively in this book about my time serving in Congress, my time as governor, before governor, some of the travels that I've had. I'm not going to talk about my specific meetings with world leaders. I'm just not going to do that. This anecdote shouldn't have been in the book, and as soon as it was brought to my attention, I made sure that was adjusted. So
I love that. Because that right there is everything that people hate about politicians. They are massive, massive liars, massive liars. They talk about telling it like it is. They're well trained to not tell it like it is. She was like, it shouldn't have been in the book. And she's right, because it's a lie and you're not supposed to put lies in your books. But she does this abstract thing where she's like, the book's over there. It shouldn't have been in there for reasons I won't define. I'm not gonna talk about which leaders I met. except in my book where I talked about the leaders I hadn't met, but pretended that I did. She never admits there that she didn't meet him. She didn't, it was a lie. And so I have a follow-up question. Did you write this book? Because if you didn't write this book, if somebody just made up stuff for you, which is definitely the case, they all get ghostwriters to write their books, then she actually has potentially a good excuse. I didn't actually write it, it was someone I talked to them, I did some interviews and then they embellished or whatever, but she doesn't want to admit that. And so a lie means you have to lie to cover up the lie. And so it's all just that abstract, it shouldn't have been there, it was edited out. You lied about it. There have been like how many instances, Francesca, in this episode where they just won't be clear about literally anything. And in all cases, it's things that they started. They make a bold claim. They say something provocative. And when you try to get them to just admit what it is they're saying, that all of a sudden can't be pinned down. I don't want to say anything. They're utter cowards. That's why people hate politicians like this.
Well, I met with a lot of world leaders. Well, look, I've told a lot of lies in my lifetime. So this lie is actually in comparison. It's not a lie, but anyway, I've told a lot of truths in my life, and those truths are my life. And I killed a dog. You guys want to talk about the dog again? Let's talk about that dog. I also killed a goat. Nobody seems to want to talk about the goat. Look, I've watched this clip and I watched another clip of her in this exact same caught in a lie about Kim Jong-un and trying to squirm out of it. And I've come to the conclusion, John, that she didn't read her own book before it went to press. Like, that's the only conclusion. She clearly is a little disturbed that this was in there. And it's like, yeah, we're working things out with the publisher, but I've met a lot of good. You didn't read it. Like, and if you had read it, then why are you doing the circuit? Like, why are you going on the news to basically hawk your book and sell yourself as this leader and whatnot? And like, because you know you're gonna be asked about it. It's pretty big to meet with the leader of North Korea. It's not a small deal. So you know what? It's more of a bathroom reading book. So you're supposed to pick it up, read a little chapter, and then you just put it down for a few months, pick it up again and read something random. Anyway, please buy it at a Hudson News near you.
That's exactly what it is. Look, it was Margaret Brennan, right? Yeah, she did a good job of doing the follow-up questions. But again, like I wish that I would be in this sort of position. It wouldn't work because they'd never come back on the show. But like, don't just say, did you meet him? Say, did you use a ghostwriter for this book? Did you write this book? Did you type the words in this graphic into a Word doc? Did you say, I met him, little tyrants, youth pastor? Did you type those words? And if so, why did you type those words? They weren't true. You keep saying it shouldn't have been there. Why specifically shouldn't it have been there? Are there other things that are not true that you're only going to remove if we fact check it? She does this whole thing later in the interview. She calls it a powerful book. First of all, don't call your own book a powerful book when it's an autobiography. What the hell is wrong with you? Or if you can do that, okay, my book, Shadow of the Mouse Thief, very powerful. I think, it's a powerful book. It's an honest book. I think everyone should read Shadow of the Mouse Thief. Anyway, she goes on to say, everyone should read it because it's an honest book. And Margaret Brennan says, but if you have to retract it or parts of it, and she says, and that's what bothers me about politicians is when they're fake. I'm not retracting anything. I'm not retracting anything. No, this book, first of all, you were fake. That's what we're talking about right now, is that you lied about a meeting that didn't happen. And you did retract it. You literally had to take it out of the book. That's what a retraction is. Now, you're not admitting why, but that's what you did. And then once she's not with Brennan anymore, she goes to Twitter to complain about fake news, basically saying she was interrupted too much. It's fake news media. There are two sets of rules and conservatives are always treated differently. You lied. I wanted punctuate that sentence with something else, but I will just say you lied. You were caught, okay? There are two different things. Whereas like, if you were on Oprah's book club and it turned out that your autobiography was full of lies, you get pilloried, nationwide. But you lied in your book and you're not even admitting that that's what you did, even though you admitted it by taking it out of the book. And you're mad about the fact that you were being treated unfairly. She should have cut the interview off after you refused to admit that you were advocating for Commander Biden to be shot. If not, when you refused to admit that you'd lied about meeting Kim Jong-un. The fact that she kept you on there is because there are different sets of rules and people who are in power get treated with kid gloves, even by media that's being tougher than normal in that case. And what do you think?
I mean, honestly, I even think, I'm trying to rack my brain, like I think Fox, I think Newsmax, I think anyone would have asked her these questions about, they might have framed it with a smile about Commander, and then they would have both laughed about being killed, or like the Kim Jong-un stuff. Like just don't do a press tour. Do you know what I'm saying? Like this is backfiring in her face, and certainly don't do it with anyone that's going to, again, we all know that mainstream news doesn't push back, but like they're gonna give you just a little bit more pushback than other places would. So it's on her, it truly is on her, but to whine about it is so funny. Girl, just again with maybe a great running mate, John, because like drawing more attention to yourself by pointing out your own mistakes, Trump is a master at that.
That is true, that is true. Just a reminder to everyone, these are not exceptional people. These are not special people. These are people who are good at raising money. They refuse to be shamed, I suppose. That's a talent, I suppose. That's it. They're not especially smart people. They're not especially curious people. They're not knowledgeable. They're not trained. They just happen to have gotten elected for a variety of reasons, most of them bad, okay? The more you dig into them, the worse it seems. And that's why they do things like this. That's why they assassinate dogs. That's why they lie about their autobiography. She's basically George Santos at this point, except he at least had the sense to make money off Cameo. He's probably gonna make more on Cameo than she does from this book. They're not special people. Don't look up to them. Don't look, like literally, you should start from the point of view of massive automatic disrespect for any elected official. And if they prove that they're smart or whatever, then you could get them back up to the sort of neutral position you'd have towards anyone you meet, but they should start at a massive deficit. And the reason that she's doing the media tour is because she still wants to sell the book, but more importantly, she still really wants higher political office, okay? She wasn't qualified for the one she got, but she'd really like a higher one. Let's turn now to the difficulty in that. Donald Trump is apparently as obsessed about South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem's history of puppy assassination as I am. And he's apparently unprompted bringing it up in conversation on a daily basis. Multiple sources, I think 4 sources spoke with Rolling Stone about this, say that he has pointedly asked questions regarding her decision to kill the dog, including specifically, why would she do that? And what is wrong with her? He has expressed bewilderment that she would ever have admitted to doing this willingly and in her own writing, assuming she wrote the book, and has argued it demonstrates she has a poor grasp of public relations. In those various conversations over the past week, the ex-president has also mentioned that voters generally don't like politicians who kill dogs, and he's right about that. Now, he's a guy who, whenever he invokes the idea of dogs, it's in like negative metaphors, like people choking like dogs. So he already doesn't like dogs. But even he understands that you're not supposed to brag about gunning them down in cold blood. Anyway, some of them, the sources who spoke to Rolling Stone, admit that they're disclosing these details because they don't want Noem to be the VP. Some because they hate Corey Lewandowski so much, he apparently advises her. Some say just because he
does more than advise her.
Well, potentially, but apparently he's just talking so much about it. He's disgusted. He's been taunting her behind her back. And I think that is what's driving her to keep making these disastrous media appearances where she just looks more and more like a clown. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, like any press is good press, I guess. But Trump is kind of this exception where he can get away with that, right? Like even this bad press, it always helps him, even like, watching clips of Donald Trump, I was telling you this off air, that apparently that helps him. Even if they're clips of him saying I'll be a dictator only on day 1, the clips that are so damning. But that doesn't always translate to other MAGA stooges. It doesn't translate to people who put their foot in their mouth time and time again. And it certainly doesn't. I mean, John, we've been wondering like what the limit is on like how much you can do if you are beholden to Donald Trump. Puppy killing is like, I think we might have hit it. I think yeah, you can call in hits on political rivals, you can make fun of their family, you can, dox them and whatnot, but you can't kill a dog. And I'm glad to say that there's some line in American politics at this point.
Yeah, it's like that's the one thing. I mean, look, she hasn't resigned or anything. And look, maybe it's not the best reason or whatever, but like, is also the willful lies and the doubling down. Like, just like if you're from South Dakota, is this the look that you want for your state? Our governor should be like one of the best of us. Like, we lift up one of the most passionate, the best communicator, the most knowledgeable, most curious, one of the best of us. And is that what they've done? I haven't been to South Dakota. I don't know. I like to imagine that this is not the best of South Dakota. But anyway, go get your girl, as they say.
But it's just incredible because,
really
like, remember, John, she was on the news basically saying that, like, before this, basically saying, yeah, if a child gets pregnant by their rapist or via incest or both or whatever, like, they should have the baby of their rapist. And that's it, like, kind of breaks through in our spheres, but now she kills a dog, right?
Yeah, well, and because she specifically said, because why should one tragedy follow another?
Oh, yeah.
First of all, the second one is willful. You're choosing to have that tragedy. And also, I think it projects so much about what she thinks about rape, that it's a tragedy. It's not a violent crime that a man committed. It's an abstract tragedy that happened,
It's natural.
She is, like, maybe we should have been paying more attention to her along the way, because she's utterly deranged. She honestly like, Lauren Boebert has had a lot of own goals, but Lauren Boebert hasn't done anything like this. Lauren Boebert carries a gun everywhere she goes. I don't think she's shot any dogs. Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time we have for the show today. We have a minute or two. I'm gonna read a few comments to close things out. And as a thank you to everybody out there, Sydney, member for 40 months on YouTube, says, as a purple-haired person, embrace it, John. It's gonna look amazing. Sending love to all the dragons and Fran too. We will see. In addition to the color, I need to figure out exactly what cut I'm gonna get to emphasize this, but we will see. George Krukowski says in a super chat, finally watched the Bitchuation Room over the weekend. I say Francesca freaking rocks.
Hell yeah, everybody should. I had a really great conversation with my political mentor all about Gaza, and he was an active anti-war demonstrator in Vietnam and a sort of a political movement thinker. So it was really good. It was like a deep dive for an hour about what the hell we do right now, given these two awful options before us in November.
Nice. Everybody go check it out. Lots of good interviews, lots of good conversations, informative, entertaining, and funny as well.
Yeah.
And I occasionally am allowed on the show as well. So go check that out. Okay, oh wait, a little bit more gifting. James Bell gifted a membership, thank you. That was over on the Young Turks, but thank you all the same. Tanya Dodgers gifted a membership as well, thank you. Thank you to all of you. We're gonna go do our members content today. We're gonna be talking about, I apologize, but we gotta talk about Bill Maher and some of the insane stuff he's saying about the campus protesters. And one of the most elitist rants I've ever heard in my life coming at him. He's talking to Jerry Seinfeld and he makes Jerry Seinfeld look like a man of the people by comparison. So that'll be going out to our members a little bit later on today. Thank you to all of you. For now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon. Mm-hmm.